Hello and welcome to our next session. Very pleased to say that we have two excellent speakers here to talk to us about transform and innovate for success in an article-driven economy. Let me please quickly introduce the two speakers, and then I would also like to add that although we're doing this in English, we're very happy that both of them are very happy to take questions in German as well. We will try to sort of allow enough time for questions to be asked, and I think we should look forward to a very interesting discussion and conversation between Dr. Rafael Ball on the right. He is director of the ETH Zurich, and Dr. Guido Herrmann, who is senior vice president of Wiley Partner Solutions. Both of them very familiar with all the big questions in publishing, STM publishing, the disruption that's happening right now as we move to an article-based economy, and I look forward to very interesting questions and answers from both of them. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for introduction, ladies and gentlemen. I warmly welcome you to a discussion here on this very interesting topic, and we're looking on the future of scholarly communication. And I'm keen about the ideas we share here, and hopefully also with you and your questions. Ladies and gentlemen, there are few industries that are undergoing more change than the publishing industry and libraries today. Particularly in the scholarly publishing system, not only has a lot happened, just think of the digitization of the primary content and the metadata 30 years ago, but a transformation of the publication system is in full swing, the outcome of which, in my opinion, is not yet predictable in a full consequence. Whether and how science will be communicated in the future, which old and new stakeholders will play a role in this process, which solutions and which services will play a role in the future is currently being discussed. However, there is no doubt that publishers and libraries will have to reposition themselves. For in addition to the question of how science wants to communicate, ladies and gentlemen, there is an increasing influence on how science should or even must communicate. This is a special focus, but perhaps we have the chance to talk about this later on. Research founders, science policy, and universities, but also increasingly idealistic organizations and learned societies are making specifications that no longer being recommendations, but rather normative settings that directly influence the form and mood of how science must be published and communicate. Buzzwords such as open science, open access, and the sharing economy, however, hovering over everything, make it suspicious today if you want to earn money as a publisher with the production of scholarly communication content, and libraries increasingly see themselves as an extended arm of the research funders if they help to implement their normative settings. It is therefore not surprisingly that publishers, and libraries of course, are looking for new areas of business and repositioning themselves in the publishing field. The publishing house Wiley is also repositioning itself with the business branch Partner Solutions, and additionally in an area that no longer sees scientists or libraries as the primary customer, but creates an offer that is aimed also to other smaller publishers. Wiley can draw on its own decades or centuries, one could say, of experience in the publishing world and offers this portfolio as Partner Solutions. I would like to talk with Guido Herrmann, Senior Vice President, Partner Solutions of Wiley today on this topic. And thank you very much, Guido. First of all, I would like to ask you to briefly summarize what are the specific Partner Solutions offering.
Thank you, Rafael. It's my special pleasure to be here. And thank you very much for coming to talk to us today. I think your central question, how will science be communicated in the future? This is basically the broader topic Wiley is engaging. This is the broader conversation we are having. How can we serve our partners? And Wiley is working worldwide with about 900 learned societies representing hundreds of thousands of scientists. We are working with many small and medium-sized publishers. We are working with libraries. We are working with funders. And increasingly over the last few years, we see that the transition, as Karen in her introduction said, to an article-based economy creates many questions. And this transition from subscription to an article-based open access economy, even though it started 20 years ago in Berlin and then Budapest, it seems that over the last few years, the questions have become much more pressing. So how can we develop sustainable systems that support the researchers in the new open access world? How can we help societies to be sustainable and thrive in an open access world? How can we provide systems and technologies to small and medium-sized publishers who don't have the financial resources to make these really huge investments needed to build the system? And so that triggered a process at Wiley over the last few years and resulted in the fact that we have systematically assembled, call it assets, you can call it technologies, systems and processes to provide these kind of services. So under Partner Solution, we are now combining publishing, hosting technology, literatum, edupon, workflow solutions. So we have a company called EJ Press who provides submission, peer review system, production system, billing, payment systems. Further downstream, we at the beginning of this year, we were very happy that we have a company called Knowledge Unledged, OABLE, as part of Wiley and Partner Solution. The sole mission here of OABLE is to manage APC payments in an efficient way. And that might be something we might want to talk about later, because yes, especially at libraries, the management of these APC payments creates huge challenges.
May I jump in at this moment?
If you give me one sentence, and then
yes,
we can jump. And we also, so it's technology, it's systems, but we also invested in experts, in skill and expertise in the form of a company called J&J, and we have some representatives here today who provide editorial support, operational support, also strategic advice to our partners in need, so to speak. And so we have assembled all these various technologies, assets, with the aim to make these technologies, the systems, the expertise, the know-how available to our partners worldwide. As I said, currently it's about 900 we are working with. And the clear objective is to expand this base of customers, partners in the next few years, with the aim to create an infrastructure and an environment for an open access, open science world.
Yes, wonderful. I think it's very important to discuss all on all these topics you mentioned and all your services you offer inside your Partner Solutions offers. But I would come back on the question, what is for you, or for the perspective of Wiley, a difference between the article-based economy and the traditional license-based economy?
Oh, that's how much time do you give me?
2 minutes.
It's a very I think this is the central question, Rafael, and the one might say, what's the big deal? So you have a subscription world, and then you just take the money and convert it into an open access world. I think there are challenges at each level, and for instance, if we start with the systems, and that's probably close to your world in the library, if in a subscription world you subscribe to a journal and then you pay once, and then you can read the journal and you can read hundreds and thousands of articles. And so it's one transaction, maybe 2 or 3, 2 emails. In an article-based economy, that is no longer true. So in an open access world, at least under the systems we have currently, each article gets invoiced, billed, and paid individually. Each article can have, I don't know, on average, I think there are about 10 authors on an article. So you might have already 2 lead authors, and then you have 3 authors from other institutions who are in a cooperation, or you might have authors who, when they submit a paper in University A, 3 months later they're in University B. So the whole infrastructure to manage in an efficient way an article-based economy is much more complex than in a subscription world. And I can give an example here. As you know, we engaged in Germany in the year 2020. We started Project Deal. And we spent with our friends and partners at the Max Planck Digital Library in Munich. It's fair to say we spent 6 to 9 months in workshops weekly with dozens of colleagues to ask the question, how do we manage this contract? How do we create reporting for all the universities? How can we create a system that each individual author is no longer obliged to fulfill 10 steps to get the funding for his APC, but rather one mouse click? How can we have a dashboard for each university at the end of the month? How can we provide reporting back to Deal? Where are we now? So, and this is very, very complex. And I must say that was one of the steeping learning curves for me when we did Deal. I thought fantastic, and we go to Munich, and then we have a few meetings, and then we are all set. That was not the case. So it's very complex, but I think you also have a perspective here as a librarian on the challenges we have.
Indeed, indeed. We discussed before this session, Guido, this core problem we have. In my opinion, I give the question, is this way actually we go with publishers and libraries in the future on the article-based economy? Is this an appropriate way in science and research? Or is this a kind of administrative overkill? You told many, many workshops to find all these details to fulfill Excel tables ad ultimo. And I ask myself and I ask my colleagues, do libraries and do publishers really want to go this way, that we want to go to article-based economy so that the responsibility for publishing is going back to the author by itself? He or she has to decide how to publish, to find the money, to fill in forms, to make regulations, what else. The traditional way of supporting libraries was to have a license for a content. This was a collection, and this was a potential the author could use or not use. And this was an overall offering for the science. And now the libraries would be kicked off the system because the author itself has to go back on the roots to find all these details, managing it directly with the publishing house. And in my opinion, we have to discuss if publishers on the one hand want to go this way, to go on this administrative overkill, I tell it, or I name it, and the libraries as well, or is this possible to find another way to realize open access? Of course, we do not want to go back after open access, but realize open access in a way this is comparable with this overall licensing system, so that the author is not pressed to make a lot of administrative detail decisions.
That's an excellent point, and I think that's at the heart of what we're trying to do with Partner Solutions. And I have a few answers here. I think at the very foundational level, I think the answer here is systems. It's better systems. Give you 2 examples. So now we have OABLE. OABLE is a very advanced software that allows for the more or less automatic tracking of all these transactions, automatic dashboards to the libraries, automatic dashboards to the publishers who are also part of it, right? And you can imagine in an article-based economy, you not only have the authors in the middle, so 10 authors on one paper, you have about 2,500 publishers, and then you have whatever the number is, 8,000 libraries on the other side, and all these transactions have to be managed, and I think OABLE is doing a great job here. The second aspect here, Partner Solution, is the workflows, I think. I think we need much better workflows. In an article-based economy, the article doesn't come into existence when the article is published. That was in the subscription world. Now the article comes into existence probably as a preprint, right? And the ability to have a very efficient system for authors for submission. I already mentioned eJournal Press. We are developing a system called Rex, which goes even further in its aspiration that we extract all the metadata from each article upon submission. so that in this article-based economy, the article is fully defined with all the metadata, ideally with the ORCIDs of all the authors, with all the affiliations, coupled with Ringgold, so that we disambiguate the affiliations, right? And so on and so on. So I think the answer is systems at once, that we have efficient systems that allow researchers to work in this open science, open access environment. The second answer, if I may then, is you were alluding to is the question, how are we going to pay for that, right? What's the most efficient way to pay for all this? And one could argue the subscription world in a way was rather efficient as that, right? Because you have journals, you select a journal, it's one license and then the entire year, and not these hundreds of individual transactions. And here we, Wiley, obviously are trying to be innovative. I already mentioned Project Deal, which try to simplify matters in the sense that we say let's work with publish and read fees, so that we take the complexities out of the reading component, the publishing component, combine everything into one publish and read fee. And I would argue it's fair to say that in Germany this has worked quite well. And in parallel, when we started working with the Germans, we now have transitional agreements with about 40 partners in 23 countries. And now that probably gives you grief a little bit based on your question. It turns out that these transitional agreements all have their own local flavor, right? So in the US it works different than in Germany, it works different than in Australia, works different than in Japan. So it has appeared for the economic question, how do we make this efficient? There's still lots of experimentation going on.
Guido, I completely agree. I think this is one aspect to find an appropriate license model for all these new ideas, for all these new services. And the other aspect is how will science and science communication or scholarly communication work in the future? And during my preparation to this session, as I understand Partner Solutions, this is a kind of help, of services you develop to help, to support all these complicated administrative things which came up with the open access mandates, with the open access counting, with APC counting and so on. And in this direction, or under this perspective, I will grab you, Guido, by your own honor as a tradition related publisher of Wiley. Is Partner Solutions perhaps just a simple business support model, and with accounting, IT procedures, procurement, and isn't this a large step down for a traditional publisher? Or in other words, Guido, where is the old alliance between libraries and publishers on the content-based support for science, for initiating science projects, for new series, for book series, for conference series, for structuring, disseminating, curating, archiving all these knowledge, and not only supporting administrative processes such we discussed during in the Partner Solution world?
Very good question. Very good question. And I would throw the ball back immediately. I think we have a shared responsibility here. I think when we say, I think at the core of everything we should be doing, and when I say we, I mean Wiley Partner Solution and the libraries and the funders and the universities, needs to be the researcher, right? If we say, why do we fund research? For better outcome for society, right? So that we have vaccinations against COVID, that we have longer battery lifetimes in our phones, that we have more food-efficient cars. So this seems to me the benchmark for everything we are doing. And I think here we have a shared responsibility of creating an infrastructure that researchers can do their research, they can read, and they can publish in the most efficient way. And it seems that the old answers which we had, say, before 1996, when the internet came, that we say, well, you have a question, you go to the library, you find the journals, you have your Dewey numbers, and you find any book, and you should be sorted. These answers no longer work. So I think we have a shared responsibility to create this new infrastructure. And I would argue, you said, isn't this just administration, procurement, bean counting on steroids? I don't think so. I think there's lots of innovation to be made here, and good and simple systems that do an efficient job in supporting the researcher, right? And we haven't even talked about data, for instance, right? Research data. So if we create an environment that the researchers can focus on what they think they should do, and we have provide an environment that they can have from preprint to published paper with all the APC payments, automatic connecting with the research data, automatic connecting their ORCIDs, and so on and so on. So I could talk for hours. I think there's lots of innovation to be made, and if we have that infrastructure, on top then, obviously, is the other creativity to ask, do we need new journals? Where's science going? How do we support the researchers by other means? But I would argue for Partner Solution, and that's how I perceived the last 9 months, it's constant problem. First, it's the question, what is the problem? That sometimes is already opaque, to identify the problem and then find good solutions and then implement it with our partners.
Guido, I completely agree that there is a lot of innovation in these partner solutions, or also in these business supporting systems. I read in your press communication that partner solutions will address the whole knowledge value chain of the science. This is very interesting because we at the libraries also address the whole value chain of science, especially in my library, the ETH in Zurich. Last year we implemented a strategy where actually this knowledge value chain is the basic for our activities. We want to identify the pain points of the scientists, and in my opinion, the pain point of a scientist 30 years ago was to find literature, and today it's not a pain point anymore. Today it's to find the right way for publishing, to find solutions how to publish, where to find the money, where the funder, which formula to fill in, which publication system is using by Springer, Wiley, Elsevier, where are the differences, what button to click and not to click. And so we both, you as a publishing house with Partner Solutions, and we as the libraries address the whole knowledge value chain. And I ask you, Guido, where is place for other stakeholders in the Partner Solutions option?
I think there's an abundance of problems, so I don't think there's a squeezed place here. I think what is needed is, and this is happening again if I refer back to Project Deal, is a question simply who does what, right? And I would argue the role of publishers have changed dramatically over the last 25 years. And I would argue libraries need to change their role in a similar way. And now one can ask, are libraries actively taking on that responsibility? And I think it needs a conversation, because we at Partner Solution, we have by no means the objective to kind of handle everything ourselves. Our objective is to create systems and processes that have the right interfaces and where we can focus, where we provide the highest value. But give you a practical example. So naively, you would say a university should know who are their researchers and what are their publishing, right? I would say that is a valid hypothesis. It turns out it is very difficult for universities to find out who are their researchers and where are they publishing. This is okay, then publishers can help. Because going back to what I said earlier, we can capture the metadata already when a preprint is submitted, right? So we might be in a position to help you. Now, should we then interfere in internal communication you have in the university? Like, I'm sure there must be conversations around who's publishing how much and how our funds are allocated. No, but we can provide you with timely information on a monthly basis in Zurich. These are your authors, this is where they're published, and give you the data. So I think what I'm aiming at is it should be a conversation about who does what and how can we build the most efficient system without duplication of efforts. I think currently we're wasting a lot of time. The libraries are doing something, we are doing something, right? Counter statistics, now we're going to the article-based economy. It creates all these data. Sometimes I ask myself, who's using these, and that would be a conversation I would love to have, and which we, just to say, we had with Project Deal intensively, right? For months we discussed exactly who does what's the best way of splitting the job, and how can we create a system that works in all directions.
Yes, discussion is wonderful, but it is only one aspect. Cooperation, indeed, on the other hand, is another aspect. And I completely agree, there might be universities who do not know who their researchers are and where and how much they publish. We know in the ETH what we are doing, but this is perhaps another topic. Guido, I want to ask you in concrete detail, the partner solution services, are there any places for libraries in these partner solutions? Do you address with various or with one or another service directly libraries and sell do you sell your services to libraries directly? OABLE is one aspect I know. Are there other solutions you directly address to libraries?
I think if we talk about libraries, probably OABLE is the offer that has the closest relationship to libraries, because at the end of the day, when we're going from subscription payments to article publication charges, that's probably the most intense interface. With going back to my example with Project Deal, which is synonymous for the German universities, they are huge interfaces, and they start already with the submission process and capturing ORCIDs, capturing affiliations. We have a huge offer here that we need to have conversations with the libraries about Ringgold, right? About institutions, affiliation, disambiguation here. At the very downstream end, obviously it's one of the core questions is about impact. I talked about this earlier, that I said we need to create an environment that researchers can be productive. And now funders, governments, universities, they ask, what's the impact of our research? And here we also have very concrete offers for libraries. Again, we did this with Project Deal because we did many things with them, that we really show what is the impact of the published article. We can provide usage stats, we have alt metrics. We are more than happy, and we started conversations now also with funders to support funders in the same question. Can we create systems that help to show and measure impact of articles? And here, obviously, we are entering a big field, DORA, how do you measure impact, right? And we at Partner Solutions, at many parts of the value chain here, are more than happy to engage.
Guido, let me come back to a more overall question on the position of Wiley and his offerings. Is the establishment of branch Partner Solutions the end of a classical publishing house and a step towards a consulting company?
No. So I think the fact that we now have Partner Solution just is a manifestation of the fact that the world is changing. We need more systems, we need more support, we need better technology. And Wiley, through our publishing activities, we have gained these experiences, and because our genes and our nature is to partner with societies and others, we want to bring these to our partners. I do not think that this changes the underlying philosophy of a publishing house in any way. It adds more components. We at Wiley now, we are very happy. We can offer our partners a continuum. So if a society says, hey Wiley, can you please publish the journal for us and host it for us and do all the editorial services and do the marketing, and then we have a revenue share agreement. Yeah, we say we can do that. Or we now have partners who say, well, can you please only host our journals and we do the rest. We have partners who say, well, can you please host our journals and do corporate sales? Sometimes some of the journals are very close to industry, right? So you know there's lots of advertising and other things we can do. We can also do that. So for us, it just broadens the options we can bring to partners. And fundamentally, I mean, each article needs to prove its impact, right? So each article needs to prove it's worth reading. And this, I think, is again a very classical publishing activity, because you as a publisher, you have to create that relevance, you have to create that context so that a reader understands this is an article worthwhile reading.
So I understood that Wiley is still a content-related and oriented company, but as well you established a new service branch with Partner Solutions. And I will ask you if you are willing or able to answer the question, are there some figures on the contribution margin Wiley expects Partner Solutions should generate?
Okay, so yes, the answer is yes. I mean, I can. So first of all, Wiley overall, we are a publicly listed company, so we are fully transparent with our financials. Anybody can go to the Wiley webpage and read the financials. Unfortunately, this is not simple, because Wiley is a very diversified business, as many publishers are, so there are differences in terms of margin, which is quite normal. Even if you go to Migros or Aldi in Germany, there are different margins depending on which product you buy. For Partner Solutions, we are very confident that this will be a sustainable, and I use the word profit-generating business, in the medium term. So this is an investment for us. It's an investment in team and technology to develop the systems. We expect, which is also quite normal and standard, that after 2 or 3 years, we will be starting to see the light.
Guido, perhaps a last question before we open the discussion to the audience. Do we have some pricing models or licensing models for these solutions, tariff models? Is something known, or can you tell us something on this?
Oh yeah. So obviously, currently our pricing is as diversified as we have the product. So Adapon, as a typical software as a service, has a very different pricing model. In this case, I'm just saying it's an annual license fee plus setup costs, compared to when we say Oable, which is purely transactional. Yeah. So I can give you an example. Oable, as I said, Oable is about managing the APC payments, right, which is quite complex, quite detailed, and the average APC maybe is €2,500, €3,000, and the Oable business model, and Sven Fund is in the audience, he can correct me, is roughly €100 per article transaction fee. Yeah, so you can do the math. 2,500 and 100, so put this into relation. So that's a different business model. However, we are currently working with the teams to bring all the various products together, so that a library, a publisher, a society, rather than having 5 business models, we will bring these all together, and it's much easier then to access the range of services. This is a little bit work in progress, because we are still a young team, but if you give me another month or 2, and then I'm sure we have a pricing list for these combined across everything we do, bundles.
Thank you, wonderful. So I think it's time to open the questions to audience. Are there some questions, comments? No question, comments? One question here.
Ashley Mabbitt from Wiley. I'm asking this from my own curiosity, but also this is coming from actual conversations that I've been having with stakeholders such as university presses. How is it that Wiley Partner Solutions can potentially support these other stakeholders who might be nonprofits, for example, without those partners losing their high value reputation as a nonprofit, as a non-commercial publisher, basically? How do we convey that message in a believable, plausible sort of way?
Okay, that's a good question. So fundamentally, we are doing this for many decades. So on our pure publishing side, we work with many non-profit organizations, many societies, Chemistry Europe, the GDCH, the German Physical Society, AGU. I could go on and on and on. And so we are doing this all along. And I think it's the decision of the partner, how they position their journals, how they position their books. It's also their decision in cooperation and in conversations with us, what's the best business model for their journals. And here I can say that for many societies now, this is a very difficult transition from subscription to open access, right? They are relying on subscription payments from libraries, sometimes for 100 years, and now this is all changing. And here we as a partner, we give strategic advice. We can consult societies and say, okay, this is your journal, your authors coming from these territories, there's transformational agreements in these countries. We can say what is the subject discipline, the funding for open access varies by subject discipline, and so on and so on. So it's a strategic process. And then we can give what we think is the best advice, also obviously for these non-profit, right? Just a general statement, if I may, I mean, non-profit is a tax status. Right? Non-profit doesn't mean you're not making profits. So I could name some societies who are non-profit, who are very profitable, rightly so, because they have a mission. They have to support their members. They want to have an annual meeting. They are doing continuous education efforts. So even for a non-profit to make a profit or a surplus or to have some money at the end of the year, however you want to call it, is critical. And we, as Partner Solution and Wiley Publishing, we will do always our best to give the best advice here.
Are there other questions? Hier vorne.
Vera Münch, Bit Online. I'm wondering, or just let me ask you, do you really believe that we will have an article-based economy? And if yes, if we will have an article-based economy, can you tell me what it is, article-based? Is it a simple PDF, or is it a snippet of research, or is it a micro-research result, or what else it is? Is it still publishing articles?
That's the question more than 18 minutes, I guess.
That's a very good question. I can try the answer, and then I rely on Rafael to help me. Yeah, that is the central question. And the question here is, we are moving to an open science environment, right? This is where we are going. So we want to say output of scientific research needs to be available without any paywalls. That's the first one, right? It should be machine readable so that we can do text and data mining. Each article should have the right and correct rich metadata. Who are the authors, right? From which institutions are they coming? Automatically, you should be able to see for each article what are the research networks they are working in, right? So you could have knowledge graphs on top of articles, so that rather than saying it is published in Journal X, you can say this article is published from this group of authors. The knowledge graph tells me this is their kind of like research context, and keep exploring further, right? Each article, and if you read, for instance, the funder requirements in Brussels, in Germany, research data is the next frontier. So you say, I read the article, but I need to have the research data available to make my own conclusions, right? So how do we connect research data to the article? It might sound trivial, actually it's very complicated. Germany is now funding the national, I said in German, nationale Forschungsdateninfrastruktur, the national research data infrastructure, where they're investing high 7-digit numbers to create that environment. So again, article-based economy means that I have an article and by mouse click I get the data. Now, the data doesn't mean you get a PDF and then you can print it. Data means, again, accessible data, right? So I could go on and on and on what it means. The the short answer to your question is, for me, article-based economy means we create an open science environment where researchers in a digital environment can much more effectively carry out their research. And we as publishers and libraries provide that environment to make it happen. And as Rafael said, that would justify a probably 2-hour event in itself. What is the article-based economy? But I'm very curious to hear Rafael's view.
Yes, thank you, Guido. I have a long answer, which is not appropriate here, but I have a short answer as well. I think in this term, article-based economy, there are two dimensions. The first dimension is article-based. What does it mean? It is not an article, and in the future also we have a 7-page article. This is the actual status quo, and perhaps in 20 years we have other kinds of scientific output. Today also we have another kind of scientific output. We have research data, as Guido said. We have knowledge graphs, we have snippets, we have tweets and blogs, and what else is an appropriate article and scientific output. But it is accountable. You have one output of one researcher or one research group, and this is something new, to look on this output. And on the other hand, you have the word economy. And this makes me a little bit nervous, because article-based economy means, and this is a really serious problem, most university accounting departments have identified now a chance to find cost triggers in the university. And they do not say the library spent too much money for journals from Wiley, Elsevier, and Springer, but they say the Professor X publish, he has to pay, she has to pay. If she or he will not publish, he will not pay for anything. And so the university scientific system or the research system goes back to a question how to find money for making research. And this is, in my opinion, a bad direction of the overall aspect of science. And so the article-based economy makes me a little bit nervous, because it is far away from the idea, as a researcher, you have to work for knowledge, for truth, and not to find the money to publish one article, to publish one data set, to publish one tweet.
Absolutely. A few comments. When OpenX, and I'm just referring now on this economic aspect, right? Economy makes us nervous because somebody needs to pay money, right? So where's that money coming from? That's the question. When OpenAccess started in 2003 or even earlier in Budapest, there was the kind of feeling that open access is going to be the solution for everything. Once we have open access, and then that solves all the problems, and then we are happy campers. It solved many problems, rightly, but not all. Yeah? Now, the question of who is paying for it, what does it mean, article-based economy? I think the best answer you can find in a position paper from the, I said in German and then translate, the Wissenschaftsrat, that was published in January. So the Wissenschaftsrat is the German Science Council, is the highest body we have in Germany, determines science direction. And after a long consultation process with all the federal states, with all the ministries, it took a long time, expert hearing, they published this paper in January. If you don't know it, if you haven't read it, I can only recommend. They even translated it. Typically it's only available in German, because this is so important, this paper. It is also an official translation into English, so you can read it. Now, they say the following. They say the subscription world was the subscription world, and we should leave this behind as the past, also in terms of economy. They did a study, obviously with a focus on Germany. Roughly publication cost in a broader sense, not just APC, is 1 to 1.5% of the entire funding for each research project. Right? Simple as that. So they looked across everything. They said, well, researchers, when they get funding, the funding needs to account for this 1 or 1.5% that is needed to publish the article, right? And that seems to me a brilliant solution. Why? A researcher who receives lots of funding has more money to publish, so automatically you have the connection. A university that is very research intensive will publish more, but they're research intensive because they have more funding, so they have more funding for the publication, right? this dissolves all the dilemmas. And what makes us so nervous is that in the past, you can have all sorts of combination. The university can be research intensive and had very good subscription deals. So for them, this is painful, right? It might be a university who is not very research intensive and they paid a lot for subscription. Now in an open access world, all of a sudden they are very happy because they pay less. So, but I think all these considerations are leading nowhere because it's just looking too much into the past. And if we follow the advice of the Wissenschaftsrat, that we say, well, going forward, any funded research, any grant from the German Forschungsgemeinschaft or whoever from Wellcome should give the researcher the means, i.e. 1 to 1.5%, to publish their research. This sounds like a very good, straightforward and easy solution to me. And maybe that helps you with your worries a little bit. I don't know.
Perhaps, Guido, but let me add one sentence and cite another concept, not from the Wissenschaftsrat, but from the Deutsche Forschungsgemeinschaft, the German Science Foundation. In their latest report, they wrote one sentence which was very interesting for me. The sentence was, open science does not make science better. This is a very interesting announcement or statement of the DFG. And this could be a point or food for think that open science is wonderful. We all want that results and scientific outcome is available for everyone. But on the other hand, actually it is a situation that everyone indeed tend to think that openness makes science better. Openness makes science not better, but openness makes science open. But it does not make science better.
I agree. I agree. Even though if you say this is the hypothesis, I can see that in a digital, open, interconnected research world, it creates a much better environment for transparency, for interoperability. Hopefully it creates an environment that leads to better quality. I think to create that digital infrastructure is the kind of prerequisite to then ask the real questions. But it seems to me we are still struggling a little bit, all of us, in the question, how should that infrastructure look like, right? And that's why it needs even more conversations as we are having today so that it's going in the right direction and we, Wiley Partner Solutions, can make the contributions that help.
Guido, I look on the timetable. I think we can come to the end of our discussion, and I would propose 1 or 2 sentences from your side to Partner Solutions, 1 or 2 sentences from my side to Partner Solutions. Do you agree? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. You can start.
Thank you. I think first, thanks all for coming. I think the conversation which we just had over the last 55 minutes is actually what's inspiring for Partner Solutions, right? It's exactly that, to have these conversations, where we're going, what are the contributions, what are the real problems, how can we address them? For us, I think we are here on a journey with our partners, with the libraries, with the societies, with the researchers, and I just hope we continue to engage, and I hope that the things we bring to the community create the value we are aspiring to do.
Thank you very much. One sentence from my side. For me as a librarian, Partner Solutions are very interesting. It is a very interesting direction in which Wiley or other publishers go, because we see here there are new common approaches for publishers and libraries to support science, to make science easier for scientists, to make the research procedures easier, to make the outcome easier available, and to make the processes which are underlying this more efficient for the researcher. And this is our common approach, and I'm happy to learn more on your Partner Solutions and perhaps to cooperate in the one or another way.
Thank you, Rafael. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you all for coming. Thank you.
Thank you both for a very interesting and engaging conversation and discussion. Thank you. Thank you.
There is information available here outside from Wiley colleagues if someone is interested to get some information on Partner Solutions products.